For a long time, camera companies acted like design didn't matter anymore. Somewhere around the DSLR boom of the late 2000s and early 2010s, the entire industry basically agreed on one thing. Cameras were tools, and tools didn't need personality. They just needed good specs, solid ergonomics, and reliable performance. That was the mindset. If you cared about how a camera looked, people almost treated it like you weren't a serious photographer. Reviewers focused on grip comfort, autofocus points, dynamic range, weather sealing, menu systems, burst rates, all important stuff obviously, but aesthetics? That part got pushed aside like it was superficial. And honestly, for a while, almost every major camera started looking exactly the same. Big black body, chunky grip, matte finish, little viewfinder hump on top. Canon looked like Nikon, Nikon looked like Sony, Sony looked like everyone else. Function completely swallowed identity. But somewhere between 2024 and 2026, something shifted. Quietly at first, then all at once, camera companies started realizing that photographers actually do care about design. Not just in a luxury Leica kind of way, but in a very real, everyday way. And now, design matters again. Big time. So yeah, let's get into it. The interesting part is that photographers never really stopped caring. The industry just ignored it for years. People always wanted cameras that felt inspiring to use, cameras that made them excited to go out and shoot. The difference now is that manufacturers finally started paying attention, and the brands embracing this shift are the ones creating the most interesting cameras in the market right now. Back during the DSLR era, cameras became incredibly capable, but they also became kind of emotionally empty. Take something like the Canon 5D Mark II, legendary camera, changed video production forever, or Nikon D700, incredible image quality, fantastic reliability, but visually, they were basically industrial black bricks. Nobody bought those cameras because they looked beautiful. People bought them because they needed what they could do. And that created a weird relationship between photographers and cameras. You appreciated the performance, but not necessarily the object itself. That's a very different thing from wanting to pick up your camera even when you don't need to. And honestly, that distinction matters more than people realized. The camera that really exposed this whole thing was the original Fujifilm X100 back in 2011. At the time, it almost looked weird compared to everything else on the market. Retro-inspired body, physical dials, hybrid viewfinder, silver and black styling that looked straight out of the film era. A lot of reviewers treated the design like some cute little bonus feature, like, yeah, it looks nice, anyway, let's talk about image quality. But Fujifilm understood something the rest of the industry didn't yet. People connect emotionally with cameras that feel special. Fast forward to today, and the X100 series has become one of the biggest cultural phenomena in photography. The X100 practically impossible to keep in stock, and the crazy part? A huge percentage of buyers aren't even long-time photographers. They're people moving from smartphones into dedicated cameras because the camera itself feels desirable. It feels personal. It feels intentional. That completely changed the conversation. Fujifilm realized that a camera people enjoy carrying is a camera people actually use more. And that matters commercially too. More shooting leads to more attachment. More attachment leads to lens purchases, ecosystem loyalty, upgrades, accessories, all of it. Design wasn't just decoration, it directly affected how people interacted with photography itself. And now, other companies are finally catching up. Probably the boldest example right now is the Sigma BF. Honestly, this thing feels like a camera from another timeline. Machined from a single block of aluminum over several hours, almost absurdly minimal, no memory card slot, no EVF, barely any buttons, pressure-sensitive haptic controls. Sigma basically made a camera that ignores the traditional spec war mindset completely, and people are split on it. Some photographers absolutely love it, others think it's ridiculous. But here's the important part: nobody ignores it. That alone says everything. For years, cameras became interchangeable appliances. The Sigma BF instantly has identity. Whether you love it or hate it, you remember it. And Sigma clearly understands they're not trying to win over spreadsheet photographers comparing autofocus benchmarks all day. They're targeting people who care about the experience of using the camera itself. Fujifilm kept pushing this direction too. The Fujifilm X1/2 is probably one of the clearest examples of design becoming part of the shooting process itself. Vertical sensor orientation inspired by half-film cameras, a fake film advance lever you actually flick between shots, film simulation interactions designed to mimic old analog workflows. On paper, some of this sounds almost silly, but when you actually think about it, it changes how people shoot. It slows things down, makes photography feel deliberate again. And that's really what this whole movement is about. Even Nikon jumped into the retro conversation with the Nikon ZF, full-frame modern mirrorless internals but wrapped inside a body heavily inspired by classic Nikon film cameras like the FM and FE series. Physical shutter speed dials, ISO dials, exposure compensation dials, actual tactile controls instead of burying everything inside menus. And the reaction was huge, not because it had the best autofocus on Earth or the fastest burst shooting, but because photographers connected with it emotionally. Same story with the Pentax 17, a half-film film camera released in an era where film photography itself already feels niche. No autofocus, no modern computational tricks, just pure intentional shooting. And yet people loved it because it felt authentic. Even Yashica came back swinging with retro-styled digital cameras built almost entirely around aesthetic identity. Smaller sensors, ordinary specs, nothing groundbreaking technically, but photographers responded anyway because the cameras looked fun to use. And honestly, this entire shift proves something really important. Cameras affect photography way more than people pretend it does. A camera isn't just a sensor inside a box. The physical experience matters a lot. Take tactile controls, for example. A camera with dedicated shutter speed dials, aperture rings, and ISO dials changes how you shoot compared to a camera buried inside touchscreen menus. When exposure adjustments become physical interactions instead of digital menu navigation, photographers engage with settings more naturally. You think differently while shooting. You react differently. It becomes muscle memory instead of software management. That's not aesthetics replacing function, that's aesthetics influencing function. Same thing with portability. Cameras like the Ricoh GR series or the X100 lineup get used constantly because they're easy to carry. The camera sitting in your pocket creates infinitely more photographs than the one sitting at home because it feels too bulky to bring. Design decisions directly impact how often the camera becomes part of your life. Even tiny details matter more than people think. The way dials click, the resistance of a shutter button, the texture of the grip, the sound of the shutter. All of these things shape confidence while shooting. They affect rhythm, cadence, trust. Photography is deeply physical, and for years the industry kinda acted like only megapixels and autofocus algorithms mattered. But now we're finally seeing manufacturers acknowledge that cameras are emotional objects too. And honestly, this shift probably says a lot about who's buying cameras today. The traditional professional market still cares heavily about specs, obviously. Working photographers need reliability, speed, efficiency. But the younger generation entering photography now, a lot of them are coming from smartphones. They're not obsessing over autofocus test charts. They're choosing cameras based on inspiration, personality, and experience. They want cameras that feel like part of their identity. That's why Fujifilm keeps growing. That's why the X100 VI exploded culturally. That's why retro-inspired cameras suddenly dominate conversations online. People are rediscovering that photography isn't just technical, it's emotional too. And honestly, Canon and Sony still feel slightly behind here. Their flagship cameras are technical monsters, absolutely. Cameras like the Canon EOS R5 Mark II or Sony A1 Mark II are unbelievably capable, but visually, they still feel very safe, very corporate, very optimized. Incredible tools, but not necessarily objects people emotionally connect with. And maybe that still works perfectly fine for professionals. But outside that market, the momentum feels different now. The next few years are probably going to bring way more design-focused cameras, more retro bodies, more tactile controls, more compact fixed-lens cameras, more metal construction, more cameras designed around personality instead of universal spec sheet dominance. So yeah, honestly, it really does feel like camera design matters again for the first time in a long while. And I think a lot of photographers already knew this years ago, way before the companies finally started catching on. Because at the end of the day, the camera that actually makes you want to go out and shoot is usually the one you end up loving the most. Specs obviously still matter, performance still matters, but now we're finally seeing cameras with actual personality again, instead of every single body looking and feeling exactly the same. And honestly, that's probably one of the best things to happen to photography in a very long time. Alright guys, that's pretty much it for this one. Let me know down in the comments what you think about all this. Do you actually care about camera design, or are specs still the only thing that matters to you? As always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.